Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm very honored today. I'm on Zoom with two incredibly talented filmmakers. I've got, I didn't double check names, but I think I'll be able to get it. Alyssa Thordarson or Thordarson. Which one's more? Oh,
Thordarson, you nailed it.
Thordarson, I nailed it. And the less difficult but equally important Clare Cooney. Hello, you two.
Hello.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. So this is Zoom. I believe, Claire, you're in LA and Alyssa's in Chicago.
Sure am.
Correct.
So wonderful. We've got a multi-city across the U.S. If only we had someone in New York, we could be like total elite snobs, pretend that like the rest of the country doesn't exist except LA, Chicago, New York. But anyway, so we are here to get to know these two very talented people, but also to talk about the film After a Love Story, which I hope this doesn't take me too long, but I'm going to name all the awards you won at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2022. Because After a Love Story, which I can't remember what I said at the Q&A, but I think I used the word devastatingly wonderful. It's just beautiful, and it's art, and it touches the audience, and it's quietly devastating while also being inspiring and heartwarming. Like it's wonderful to be devastated and have your heart warmed at the same time.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Right? Because that's actually what life is about, and that's kind of what drama should be about. So anyway, here is the list of awards. And it's not even long enough. I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. By the way, cursing is allowed. I don't know how you two feel about cursing. But I was like,
I'm from Chicago. You're going to hear it regardless.
I was like, fucking hell. Claire didn't get one. But anyway, so Grand Jury Award for Best Short Film Drama. Grand Jury Award for Best Lead Actor in a Short for your lead, for Glenn Stanton. Grand Jury Award for Best Performance by a Cast in a Short Film. And of course, that includes Alyssa. Grand Jury Award for Best Screenplay for a Short Film Drama for Alyssa. And a Filmmakers Award, the last one's a Filmmakers Award. And by the way, I don't know if you read the fine print, but the Grand Jury Awards are given out by the selection jury. And the Filmmakers Awards are given by a jury of filmmakers who've had films at the festival in previous years. So that one's handed out by your peers. And what do you know? Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Performance by an Individual in a Drama for Alyssa Thordarson. So that was the 6 awards, 6 awards.
Something
it's not
like
enough.
that.
Sometimes I think we should have a joke award where we just, not a joke, but, you know, to make it more fair for other films, we could give like a film like After a Love Story, just a film called All the Awards.
Thank you so much.
And Lord knows no one sits down and makes a film with the intention of winning awards, but it doesn't suck when it happens, right?
No,
Sure,
it's great.
top.
And this was actually our the last festival of our run.
Mm-hmm.
So to close it out on that note was wild. I mean, I certainly didn't expect. I mean, like you said, you don't sit down to make something expecting awards, and also when you're writing a drama that's pretty straightforward and that's not particularly avant-garde in any way, you are in the most competitive category because that's what everyone is doing. So I don't think we really had expectations of sort of grand amounts of recognition, but we knew that we had something that we thought was good and we're happy to make, and we're happy to make together, which was really the biggest reward in the whole process, I think.
For sure. And talking about how great the film is, do you want to share where people can see it? Because I think we've agreed we're going to release this podcast on or close to the date it releases online.
Yes. If you are listening to this on or after January 30th, you can watch it right now on a channel called Amuleto. It's on YouTube. It's the home of like a ton of amazing short films. It's a great channel. So check us out.
Yeah, I love when films get Amuleto. Really, I think, right. People get like over 10,000 views plus on there. I think it's really a nice platform.
Claire's last short film has like 750,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. So my first short film, Runner, has like almost 900,000, and then the one after that, Pickup, has like 600,000 views. I mean, there's no way to know. I mean, I'm someone who's very in with the Amaletto crowd, so I kind of know a bit about the like algorithms of it all. Like YouTube goes through periods where the channel gets just tons of views, and then there's times where it's a little bit more like, oh, you're going to get 10 or 12, but nothing crazy. So while I wish it was more in the hands of the filmmaker, it's more about the YouTube gods that like determines what views a film gets. However, the best way to help indie filmmakers like us is to go and watch and like it and comment, because YouTube sees engagement on the channel and is like, oh, people really love this. And then it pushes it out to new people who would not find that film if it weren't through you guys watching it and you guys clicking on it and commenting and all that stuff. So it's a reminder that whenever your friends are kind of making a short film or their first feature or whatever, those small things like supporting things and subscribing to a channel or commenting makes all the difference to get the film seen.
It does. And I'll stress the comments, positive comments. Everyone I speak to says the comments are actually even more important than the ratings, right?
Yeah, I mean, in general, you want to give it a like, obviously, but like, yeah, especially when, speaking of like a podcast, I know that like commenting and like rating a podcast on like the podcast apps and all that stuff, it just does a huge amount of good for new people that are, trying to put their stuff out there, but I never think to do it. And so I'm as guilty of this as everyone else is. So yes. Comment and like on your friend's stuff.
should I throw out the guilt trip into the ether right now and point out that I believe you're the probably around 170th people to do this podcast, and there's not 170 5-star reviews of it on the podcast.
I'm gonna go
app.
subscribe
isn't that
and
funny?
rate it right now, Jeff. Right now, I'm gonna do it.
Right now, here we go. 5 stars.
I didn't mean it that way. You don't have to do it while we're.
Yes, we have to.
And actually, out of curiosity, is Amaletto? Do they ask for an exclusive agreement with you?
No, it's not exclusive.
Okay.
So you can be on Vimeo or Amazon Prime or whatever. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know if you remember, like when you heard about this podcast, I'll just mention at the top of the podcast, right before we hop into your personal histories, that this podcast gave birth to a TV series on Prime Video. So, hey, if you're listening to this and you love indie film, if you go to Amazon Prime Video and search for Discover Indie Film on there, there's 7 seasons so far of just the best films handpicked from the festival circuit. And season 8 is coming. And season 8's exciting because it's all dance films.
Ooh.
I got invited to be a guest programmer at a UK-based dance film festival. And I said to the head programmer, you just want to take over one of the seasons and just like program a dance film season from your festival, all the award winners at your festival? And thank God she said yes. So
there you go.
I get to sit back and do very little work this time. And we get season 8. So anyway, that's my mentioning of that. So I don't know if we have anything else to push people towards, although at the end of this podcast, I'll name everything and you can name your social media handles and any websites you want people to check out. But yeah, Perfect. Discover Indie Film. This podcast is about learning what drives creative individuals. So who wants to go first, talking about when you first got inspired to enter the creative arts? And, I love that you both are multi-hyphenates and doing all kinds of things, but who wants to go first?
I'll dive in. Okay, I'll dive in. I started off as an actor. I did the musicals and stuff like that when I was in middle school and high school. And I'll add,
it's Claire talking, just in case people aren't clear.
It's Claire talking. Yes, yeah. I'm Claire. So I was the director of this short film we're talking about today. And I also cut the film and helped produce the film. So I started off as an actor. I never thought I'd pursue it professionally. So I don't know. I had the itch I loved being on stage. So I did a lot of musicals, and I wasn't even like the lead. I was usually in like the specialty dancer chorus. But I just loved being on stage and loved the ensemble quality of that. And yeah, it was just the most fun. And I know for me,
And
like
that was
even to this day, like singing is just the most, like, I'm fine at it, but like, it's just the most therapeutic, like liberating thing to do. And so I fell in love with acting and singing and being on stage when I was in like 6th grade, I think. Yeah. I mean, I always liked movies and things like that, but it wasn't the kind of thing that it's easy to make a short film or a feature film or anything like that when you're in middle school. So it always ends up being stage and stuff like that. So I just kept doing the musicals, and then I'd audition for the plays and all that kind of stuff. And I never really got a lead. I got a lead role in 8th grade, but that was about it. Throughout middle school and high school, I was kind of like, I'd have a couple lines here and there, or like I'd have a moment maybe as like a soloist for one little part. But for the most part, I was always in the chorus and the ensemble, and I was happy to be there. And I really came into my own as like an actor and an artist in college, because when I was a freshman in college, I got cast in a play, and it was really rare for freshmen to be cast in like the main stage play. I remember at that point being like, oh, and so it was fun to be with a teacher who saw me differently than maybe my high school teachers saw me. And that was pretty fantastic. And I became really tight with a musical theater group on campus that allows the students to be part of the leadership of the company. The company is called PEMCO. And so the students produced it and directed it. Yes, question, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in. I was derelict, and I didn't make you add where you grew up and where this college is.
Yes. So I grew up in a suburb outside of Detroit, Michigan. And then I went to college at Notre Dame. So in Indiana. Yeah. And
solid Midwest upbringing.
Very Midwest. I'm deeply Midwestern. Like
we have this in common.
Yeah. Like ever since moving to Los Angeles, like people are like, stop being so humble, like brag about yourself. Stop with the Midwestern, kind of quality you bring to yourself. And whereas I feel like in the Midwest now I'm viewed as like so arrogant, but here I'm seen as like so humble. So I think it's like a balancing act between what people expect out here versus in the Midwest. But yeah, very
well,
Midwestern.
not to push you to be more arrogant, but I've got to assume a university the size and reputation of Notre Dame, it must actually mean a lot to get cast in the theater department as a lead as a freshman. Because that is not like, if you had said I went to a small liberal arts college with 1,700 people versus Notre Dame, I mean, that sounds like a big deal to me.
It certainly was. They have a very good program and beautiful facilities and all that. But that being said, it's also, it's not a conservancy or conservatory style program. So, it's not going to be like the intense training that you're going to see at a school like that, like DePaul or Michigan or something like along those lines. But it was certainly like competitive. And for someone like me who'd never really had a lead in high school to get cast as a freshman, it just did something for my self-esteem and for my confidence in this arena, where I never intended to pursue this professionally. And then throughout college, I just gained so much confidence. I was in all the plays. I got leads in like all the plays. And I also I directed a musical for that student group, PEMCO. Like we all helped produce our own shows. And I think that was an invaluable part of me growing up as an artist was, to learn that I had the capacity and the desire to like lead in the arena. So not just act, but also be part of the creative process, and that I enjoyed having creative control or collaborating and in a way that was more substantial than being a player. So that was huge for me. And then I left college, and I was like, again, I wasn't sure what I was going to do or for how long. I thought to myself, I really enjoy this. I'll give it a couple years, like the famous last words of an artist. because I'm from a very intellectual, pretty successful, like very mainstream family. You know, the dad's a lawyer and my sister's a lawyer and my brother's in public policy. And so everyone's kind of doing graduate degrees and all that kind of stuff. And so I figured I'll try this out. We'll see. And then, I was in Chicago for the first 7.5 years of my professional life, mostly acting the first few years. And then, to be honest, like how I made my first short film was a combination of a great idea that I really was in love with came to me at the same time that I also was thinking to myself, I'm not getting called in for the kind of role that I want to be seen for. At the same time that I met some friends that could help me to make the short film, because you can't make a short film alone. You know, you need to know a DP. You need to have collaborators. You need to have people that will take that risk with you and do things for very cheap or free or whatever. And so it was a perfect kind of combination of, I had this idea for a film I was really passionate about. I knew exactly how I wanted it to feel and look. I also thought I could kill the role, and it was a role I don't think I would have ever been called in for my film TV work through casting directors in town. And then I just made friends with a great DP who happens to be the DP for our film. And so that was kind of kismet, you know, and I made my first short film, and thank the Lord, it did really, really, really well. It played at 15 film fests, and it kind of just gave me a voice as a filmmaker, as a director. I learned to cut my own work while I was cutting that short film. So then I kind of became someone who, like, I edit a lot of short films and reels and trailers, and I kind of co-cut a feature film I just made. And so, you know, it just really opened up my entire sphere in which I was working to be not just an actor, but also, you know, I edit and I direct and I produce and all that stuff. And it was so, and I wrote that one. So that was just so liberating. I think I haven't really looked back since. I think the way that worked out and how much it helped me grow really put me on the track that I'm on today. And I don't really intend to stop. And then, I met Alyssa in Chicago through acting world, through the filmmaking world. We were kind of like acquaintances, and then kind of friendly acquaintances, and then like friends. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and we kept in touch, and we were very much like friendly over social media and all that kind of stuff. And then I had made my last short film, Pickup, in January of 2021, and that one did really well. And then Alyssa sent me her script and said, you know, I don't even know if you said, do you want to read it for feedback? I think that it was just start off as that. And then at one point, I don't know if you mentioned, like, do you want to direct this or something like that? And I was like, yes, of course. Like, and I think you were like, oh, okay. And so then all of a sudden we were like, let's make this. And then cut to a few months later, and we made the short film. But
yeah, it was kind of like kicking a ball down the hill. Once you kicked it, it goes. And it was also a really like perfect time in the summer of 2021 when it looked like maybe COVID wasn't going to be a thing anymore.
Right.
And people were coming out of isolation, and everyone just said yes because they wanted to make this thing. They wanted to make anything, but they particularly wanted to make our thing. And I think once Claire said yes, people wanted to work with Claire. She has a name in Chicago. And we knew, and we knew Glenn also from the Chicago theater scene, although he has been in LA now for, I think, 6-ish years. And it was the same thing that Claire and I had, where Glenn and I had been kind of friendly on social media for a while, and then realized we had a lot in common. And when I wrote that character, I remember saying to Claire at some point, like, I don't think anybody else but Glenn can play this. Because in anybody else's hands, you would have hated that guy. And he's so warm and empathetic, and it's frustrating maybe that he's not listening, but you know that it comes from a good place. And that's really hard to do. And it really only could have been Glenn. So, and then Jason Chu, our DP, who Claire previously mentioned had worked on Runner, was available and wanted to work on the film. And so it was a fun reunion of people and new connections. And I had worked with Jason on a Feeding America commercial like a couple years before, which is how I'd met him. So it was fun. It was a really good confluence of people and timing.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, here, Alyssa, you want to jump back and share how you got into this?
Sure. I mean, I was never going to do anything else. I mean, it was just, it was a straight line from, oh, that's a thing you can do, to that's what I'm doing. Much to the chagrin of my parents. And I think my dad, who is a genius and a very high achiever, had a little bit of maybe immigrant anxiety. He's from Iceland, where he had worked so very hard to get to where he was. And he saw me maybe making what can only be described as a truly foolish decision, financially and maybe in terms of stability. And
it's certainly not the safe choice. Yes.
Right.
So if people don't want their kids to go into the arts, they shouldn't come to America, because it seems very common for second generation, right, or first generation born here. But by the way, was it middle school? Was it high school? Was it earlier? When did you get the fall in love with acting, and was it writing early on too, or did that come later?
It was all of it. I will say that Iceland in particular is the most published population per capita in the world, and it is a country of artists. I have relatives who are poets and musicians and things like that, so I don't know why my dad was surprised. And he admits now that, he really wasn't, but it was always like, I learned how to talk really early. I started talking at 9 months old. And as my mom says, I never shut up since, in a loving way. She says that. So yeah, I mean, I was writing like books when I was a kid, just because I was like, well, this is a thing that people do. I want to do that. And it sort of escalated to like school plays, and I wrote several of those too. It really,
so not just acting in school plays, but you would write something and then bring it into class, and the teacher would say, "Hey, let's put this on."
Pretty much, or I wouldn't give anybody a choice, and I would say, "Hey, we're going to do this," because I was a very bossy child.
I would say you were a nascent producer.
Well, we'll get there. I'm still working on that. But yeah, I mean, I think I just didn't have, there was no, I don't have any other skills. This is what I can do. And I think that sort of helped me, especially in my 20s, when I didn't really have confidence in myself or as an artist at all. I couldn't quit because I didn't know how to do anything else. So while I was building up, confidence in myself and maybe trust in my abilities, I sort of had my back against the wall. I just had to keep doing it. And we see in this business a lot, it's not always the most talented people who succeed. It's the people who just kept doing it. And I think that's definitely been true for me. I can look at things that I've done and made and be like, ooh, I wouldn't make that now, but I'm glad that I kept doing it. And there was some tension when I was going to college and I wanted to study theater. My parents were like, can you not? Can you pick something? Right. Can you pick something with like a license or something? Yeah.
And by the way, I made the same mistake with you. Was it always Chicago, or where did you grow up, and where is this college?
So I am also from Indiana. Or from the Midwest. So I grew up in a town called LaPorte, which is about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Chicago, just on the other side of the lake. So I also went to a very, very small, very rural high school. I think there were 800 students total. My graduating class was like 250, which was the biggest class that had ever gone through that school. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I didn't have very much in common with a lot of people. I was very socially awkward. And so the only way that I knew how to connect with people was to do plays and to write things. And I got it in my head that I wanted to go to a conservatory program. So I was accepted to Lee Strasberg in New York and went there for a year-long program. And my parents, I think at this point, were very concerned because they're very supportive, but to a degree, you want your child to be on a stable and increasing path. And they just, with good reason, didn't see that happening. So there was some tension. And when I came back from New York, I went to Columbia College in Chicago, not to be confused with Columbia University in New York. And it was a really unique time in that program. It's open admission. It's the largest theater program, I think, in the world, because they just take everybody. But it was a real approximation of the real world, because the people who were in every show were the people who did the work. You showed up, you learned your lines, you gave a great audition, you were never late to rehearsal, like those kinds of things. And so it really instilled sort of a work ethic in me. And then I also got maybe the best advice during that time, because the faculty were all adjuncts. So they're working in the field. And my advisor, who's a brilliant actor and theater maker named Brian Shaw, I came to him at some point and I said, I don't have any more money. Like, I'm tapped out of my federal loans. My parents are kind of tapped out at this point. And I'm looking at taking out another like $50,000 to $80,000. And he said, drop out. There's nothing else that you can learn. Great
advice.
Yep. He's like, there's nothing else that you can learn in this program that you can't learn by working as an actor. So drop out. Don't go into that more debt. And just get a job. And he actually gave me my first theater job right after that conversation. Advice. So I owe my continued artistic career to Brian Shaw, because now I, at 33, don't have student debt. I don't have financial obligations that tether me to, maybe a full-time day job that would be less flexible. So really, that was the best advice that I ever could have been given. And I'm eternally grateful to him, because I had to get my ass out in the world and start working and figure out what that looked like and learn from professionals.
Yeah.
That is wonderful to hear that I'm stumbling on the fact that I'm so touched that
I am too.
Didn't say, hold on to this program. What we do here is so valuable. It was just so practical and thoughtful of your position. It was so much empathy in that advice.
Yeah. I know so many people who have been who are in their 40s now, who have barely paid off any of their loans, because of the interest and all that crap. And while I'm sure it's a wonderful experience, I also think it's not worth sacrificing the next 15, 20 years of your life, because unfortunately we're in a field where there's no guarantees. So there's no guarantee you're going to leave and make it back. I think that in general, if you're a hardworking lawyer and you're in law school, when you graduate, you will make your money back and pay your loans back. Unfortunately, this is not one of those fields.
Right.
And so that's just the most beautiful advice I've ever heard. That's so sweet.
And it illustrated to me ultimately too that the axiom is true. It is about who you know. So Brian Shaw gave me my first paid theater job. Didn't pay a whole lot, but he got me a credit on my resume. And then not long after that, one of my good friends from that theater program became a casting director and became an agent. And I was one of the first clients that she picked up, where on paper, nobody else would have signed me. Nobody else would have looked at what I've done. And I was just another, Midwestern white blonde girl with a trifling education. Nobody else would have given me that opportunity. And she did. And she's still my agent. And it really was about I've met these people and I trust and believe in them, and they trust and believe in me. And that has been the sort of defining arc, I think, of my journey as an artist, because the connections that you make and like, you know, the networking that we all hate to do. It's all like a lateral process. It's the people that you meet who are on your level, who, you know, next will be making something who can bring you on, or you will be making something that can bring them on. And there is a really beautiful collaborative spirit, in particular with the Chicago community, where we really go out of our way to like lift each other up and to find ways to fit each other into our projects. And I love that about this place. And that's, you know, also how I met Claire and everybody that worked on this film. So.
And did you meet at acting programs or in a show?
Well, Claire was also she was a casting.
So funny.
Yeah, you kind of know everybody. Even
Chicago,
if you
know
really
everyone
know them.
just from parties or from like waiting in a casting room. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Claire was also a casting director for a theater company called Theater Wit in Chicago, and I had auditioned for her several times, and also just we'd seen each other, like she said, in waiting rooms and casting offices for like whatever McDonald's commercial or something. And I was a little intimidated by her because I thought she was so cool. I know.
Little did you know, I'm actually a loser.
I stand by it. But yeah, it was we kind of ran in similar circles, but then in the pandemic, we wound up on like a group of friends, and we were watching like The Bachelor or something every week just to feel like we were socializing and and then like actually became friends. So it's that whole thing of like, hold on to the people that you meet early on, because you never know.
Well, yeah, I think that I remember you came to a Christmas party of mine. It may have been the last one or the second to last one I had, but I remember you came, and I remember being like, we never hang out, but you're great. And we're like, you're great. And then we were like, let's be friends. And then like 3 months later, I was like, oh, I'm moving to Los Angeles. Bye. Yeah. But like, that was fun. It was kind of the end of my time in Chicago, but the beginning of a bunch of great collaborations. So yeah.
I'm going to ask a silly, nerdy question. The Bachelor viewing parties, was that like people watching at home and then being on Zoom together to chat during?
Basically.
Yeah. There was somebody
cool.
would like share the screen, and they would have it playing on their computer. So we would all be watching it on Zoom and I had never seen it before. So I was like having to pause and have people explain things to me.
I mean, it's a bizarre thing.
But it led to some serious bonding.
It is the lowest form of entertainment, but it is a solid form of entertainment. I'm not immune to it.
I think there are lower, like I had never previously watched like the Bravo stuff, but man, I think that's a little like a little lower. Like the Bachelor's like, a little bit less of like calling people a bitch every other word. It's got plenty of that, but
Right. Yeah, I know the type of thing. I have a funny relationship with The Bachelor because I had a friend or two on it.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So when we would have viewing parties in my old apartment in a neighborhood in Los Angeles, like there would always be 2 or 3 people who'd been on the show sitting there.
Wait, tell me who. I might know them. Tell me who.
Oh, it's from very early. I don't know.
I might know. Oh, you maybe aren't supposed to say that. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, one of them got booted like on the first night because she was like the weird girl, and she was known as in between my finger quotes.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you when we stop recording, basically.
Okay, great.
And the other had been an NFL cheerleader. But like they were in our apartment, my first wife and I, my now ex-wife and I, like we had this big living room. So there's like 25 people every month. And it was just so much fun to watch. I mean, every week. And it was just so much fun to like talk shit about the show while you watched it. Because it's
so fun. Yeah.
And it's so fake. And like we had people on the show saying, oh yeah, they push the booze on you all night. So you start tripping up and doing dumb things.
Right. Yes. Is it the most moral show? No. Is it the most feminist show? No. Is it tasty and fun to watch? Yes. So,
Yeah. But it is definitely, if you were to be in a room with 25 people that you're attracted to, you're definitely going to marry one of them.
Gotta
that's just how life works. I always get a kick out of I just can't lose this game. It's like, you don't even care about, if you met this person at a party, you wouldn't have even asked for their number. And here you are dying to pretend to get engaged. And anyway, all right, no more Bachelor talk. So that's how you two became friends.
Uh-huh.
And After a Love Story was the very first collaboration?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I sat down and banged out this the first draft in one sitting. And I had never really written, I mean, since maybe middle or high school, I had not written a script. But I felt like I had a good grasp on what works because I read probably dozens to hundreds of scripts a year just auditioning. Right. And I sent it to Claire and I was like, I know that you just made a film and I don't know if you have a lot of time, but I would love some feedback on this because I am curious to see whether it works. Mm-hmm. And she had some great notes and some great feedback. And then I started, because her feedback was so positive, I was like, oh, maybe could we make this?
Yeah. I'm like currently trying to look through my email to find the exchange. Oh, it said, you said script notes and you said, what's your fee? And I said, I'm $3.99. And then I gave you some notes, but it was truly just like, I think there were like 2 critiques and the rest of it was all just like, yeah, it's fantastic. Congratulations. Don't overthink it. Like, make it go. I think sometimes people kind of belabor a script and it's good to get some feedback from people you trust, but also if you get feedback that doesn't sit right with you or feels like the person just wants to hear themselves talk, just throw it away and make your thing. Because I think that like you will know how to imagine something better than they will. And you know what the dialogue is supposed to sound like, et cetera, et cetera. Thankfully, I wasn't discouraging and I really liked the script, so it worked out. But just want to put that out there for anyone listening. If someone gives you feedback that just doesn't, if you get the same note from multiple folks, then that's worth paying attention to. But if it's all just stuff that doesn't feel like it's helpful feedback, then throw it away.
And I think you can tell when somebody doesn't get what you're going for. Right. And Claire and I were very much on the same wavelength of what we wanted this to be, because it very, very easily could have gone into like, after school special, Lifetime movie territory with what we were working on. Because it was so emotionally fraught. So there was a really fine line to sort of tightrope walk in order to make it feel real and not exploitative and not weepy and like sort of episodic TV.
Because it's not a melodrama.
That I have anything against episodic TV. No, it's not. Well, it's not, and that's
highly
really
realistic and empathetic to the reality that is rarely dealt with in film on TV.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's certainly it's maybe emotionally autobiographical in some ways. It's not literally so, but I was processing some things and Claire got it immediately and knew the tone immediately. And it was important to us that I guess we should tell people what the film's about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was about to throw in the word trauma and say that like, trauma, our culture's becoming aware of trauma. We're no longer pretending that trauma is something that should be kept to oneself.
Right.
But I guess my complaint about the way that Hollywood deals with trauma is they just want to portray victimhood and say, you should feel bad for this person.
Right.
And your script is all about people dealing with it in a realistic way and in a healthy way, finding a healthy way.
That's the hope. I mean, so the film is about a couple who survives a huge and violent and traumatic event, and how they sort of see if they can piece their old lives back together. And the conflict here is that these people really do love each other and they do want to try. and some things may be insurmountable, and are they, or can they, because you can't go back, you can maybe go forward. And that's the journey of the film. But it was very important to Claire and I that we not show or explicitly describe the events or the violence or the trauma. And I feel this way broadly and just generally, but in particular in a short, I've got 15 minutes to give you with these characters. And if I show you something horrific, that's the image that you're going to leave with. It doesn't matter what else happens in those 15 minutes. You're going to leave with that like shockingly violent thing. And that wasn't, I didn't want to traumatize the characters on screen. I didn't want to traumatize the audience. And I think that audiences are smart enough to emotionally intuit the story without needing us to spell it out. And we found that to be true across the whole festival experience, was that people really, I mean, whatever they fill in on their own is going to be a million times more effective than anything we could have put in the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I love that
Claire
people are
talked
able
about.
I love people are able to walk away with their own version of what happened. And for all we know, each person has probably suffered some kind of trauma, and so they might relate to it or fill in the details as it works for them emotionally. And so that allows people to both relate to it really closely because they're able to think of their own experiences, but it avoids directly triggering folks who don't want to watch those visuals. So in that way, I think it's like a perfect marriage of protecting people, but also allowing people to go wherever their mind wants them to go for that moment. Especially for, I think that I think I talked about, this is a very Spielbergian, but it's also used all the time where, you see the reaction to something as opposed to seeing the actual thing. I think that's just so effective. And I know that, in Jaws and stuff like that, it was all about, what you don't see is what is the scariest thing or the hardest thing. And so I think following along those same lines, that's the route that we went. And I think it was really effective. Thank goodness.
Yeah. And
also, just from a filmmaking standpoint, it's cheaper.
Yes, that too.
I'm sure that was not the main concern. I was going to add that I believe Claire said something really wonderful at the Q&A at the theater after the screening was that because it is a love story, like it's the perfect title, and it's about their love for each other, because actually through how they deal with the trauma, you see how what's actually blocking them is they're each more concerned about their partner.
Mm-hmm. It's a very O. Henry sort of.
The fact that they're focusing on their partner's trauma instead of their own trauma is keeping them from healing. And and it's after a love story, and it's a love story about their love, and it's not about the villains. It's not about the perpetrators of that act. And I think Claire said, it's not about them, so I saw no reason to show them.
Yep. Yeah. And I think I'm so glad that you got it that way, Jeff. Like, I love what you just said. Explicitly naming it a love story was important as well, because I think what we expect from that is the beginning. Right. We go in and we see people fall in love, and that's what we are sort of conditioned.
You fought hard for that title.
I did.
Yeah.
We tried some other titles, and I was like, I just think this is what it is. I just think that's the title.
And I'm glad you did. Because we got pushback from people saying like, it sounds like it's saccharine. It sounds like it's cheesy. And we were like, that's kind of the point, is that you go in with that idea and it ends up being a very much more raw and pure and honest kind of love than what's typically shown in like a love story. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, people were like, well, people might not want to watch it because of the title. And we're like, well, too freaking bad. We need to convince them to watch it. Yeah. Yeah.
We did. We tried maybe to think of some other titles, but nothing really stuck. But yeah, I mean, you don't see, at least I don't see, people trying to stay in love. You see people falling in love, and then the movie is over and you've got a nice little, upbeat song playing over the credits, and then you like go about your day. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a really vital space for that, but that was not what we were doing. We really wanted to explore what it looks like to have people fighting to get it back and to keep it.
Absolutely. And maybe it's happened to me with age. I've always been a big rom-com fan, but the rom-com ends at the moment. And I always joke with my partner. I always say to her, they could have broken. They might break up 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
Like the point where the rom-com ends is actually just pure bullshit. I mean, fine. You finally got it together. Guess what? Even if it ends with a wedding, I'm like, so what, they got 3 years? Because it's just kind of fun to be a cynic sometimes, but.
Yeah. Oh my God. So can we talk about upcoming projects? Because that's a perfect.
You're supposed to. I mean, feel free. And if you want, we can jump back to, it sounded like you already shared how great your festival run was. Yeah. So yeah, feel free.
Well, I would love to keep coming back to After and talk about After, but it's funny that you mentioned the rom-com because the film that I'm making now is a queer Christmas rom-com. And the director that I'm co-directing with, because this is my first time directing ever, is the really great Chicago filmmaker, Michael Glover Smith, who I met through Claire. I think at a Christmas party and then at an audition.
Yeah, I think so.
And he read the script and he loved the script. And he's like, it's funny that you wrote the same movie as After. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah. I mean, the tone's a little bit different, but there's some melancholia here. And the ending is really bittersweet and it is ambiguous. And it doesn't imply that there isn't anything necessarily beyond this. It's what you're giving us is a snapshot of a journey.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting feedback because I hadn't thought about that. But that's my main critique with rom-coms is, well, this has been fun. Now what? So
I think that just shows like the depth of your mind. And I think that I relate to that because when I made Runner, I got so much feedback from people saying like, well, who's right here and who's wrong? And what happens at the end? Like the end's so ambiguous. And I was like, that's the beauty of it. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't, in terms
that was a thing that happened with After at every festival. And like, I'm sure you ran into the same question. Every Q&A, somebody would raise their hand and I'm not going to spoil it for audience members, but they would say like, why didn't you end it this way?
Why didn't that happen at the end? Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's like, well, that it's so much more complicated for things not to be black and white and fully sewn up and be perfect and together. It's like, I love the gray and the ambiguity and all that. I think that you do too. And clearly this new film you're making has this similar quality. And I think that that's less necessarily replicating the same story. It's just, we're drawn to complicated storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also think that it's insulting to an audience to say like, now you've seen them struggle, it's all better.
Right.
People do know better.
Right.
I'm so glad, Claire, if I ever hand this podcast off to someone else, maybe it'd be you, because I was thinking of the word like emotional depth. And then you came around and said, it's because you have depth to your writing. And you clearly, Alyssa clearly has a loyalty to emotional truth in storytelling.
Yeah.
Because there's no shortcuts.
I'm very happy that like, I wouldn't have said, yes, I want to direct this if it was a script that I felt was surface level because, and she wouldn't have asked me to direct it, I don't think, because I'm allergic to anything that feels affected. I really am. Like, I like things to feel almost like documentarian in some ways, like not quite, but I really think that there's so much tension and drama in small things in our world. And the goal as a filmmaker is to kind of create those moments of tension and get you excited when it's actually a very small thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a car chase. It doesn't have to be a person being thrown off a building. It doesn't have to be someone dying. It doesn't have to be anything crazy to evoke really human high stakes responses, but keeping those responses really grounded and really raw and really human is the goal. And so I knew for you, the script was like complicated and deep and that's exactly what you want. But then too, I knew that I could work with you as an actor because you're a complicated and really natural actor. And then it was the key to find Glenn and Suzanne, you know, people who are willing to trust me and who are willing to trust each other enough to be there and to not, you know, bring with them a lot of frills and affectedness that a lot of people bring to their acting style.
Well, and it was also, I think there was a very deep level of trust on that set too, because we knew each other. And even those of us who didn't know everyone on the crew, we knew that other people did and trusted them. So it was really incredible. But also this brings me to my favorite note I've ever gotten from a director. You know, and Glenn and I are on a couch and we're crying and it's ugly and we're like, you know, trying to get our shit together. And Claire comes over and very gently kneels down and looks us in the face and says, "That was great. That would have an oboe playing over it on Chicago Fire. I don't want that."
Yeah, I was like, that was the perfect NBC procedural read. It was beautiful. I'd book you both. Now let's go for the HBO drama with there's no music underneath it and it's raw. And if you even sort of fake something, I will see it on camera.
Yeah. It was truly not being facetious. It was truly the best note I've ever been given by a director. And it was so concise and direct. And that is, I think, Claire's strength as a filmmaker is she can just whip through a page. And what helped also was because we knew she was going to be cutting the film, she's cutting in her head as we're shooting, which helped us really to stay on time. And there were a couple times I think she said, "Okay, great. Is there anything else you guys want to get?" She already knew what take she was going to use. She already had it. So we could trust her judgment on that and be able to let go of some actor vanity of, do I need to do this again? And do I look pretty and whatever? And that's, I sort of took off my producer hat when we started filming and I didn't look at the monitor and I didn't, because I knew if the second I did, I was going to be like, well, why does my hair look like that? And why do I have a pimple? Like what's happening? And it totally would have taken me out of the authenticity of what we were working on. And you just really have to be able to trust your director.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to jump in and add that everything being said about the performances and the direction is spot on. I'm going to add that all the other elements of filmmaking, the production design, the lighting, the cinematography, it's a flawless film. It's a film that is so well made that I'm sure most people just sit through it and are just carried away by the story because you don't notice how wonderful all those details are. But there's attention to detail, I think, with every element of filmmaking here.
Oh, it's so sweet to hear. I mean, yeah, Jason Chu is a wizard. He's fantastic. He's who shot the film. And then we had an amazing crew. We call him J-Lo, but he was our lighting, and we had, I mean, it was a pretty small crew. There was only 10 of us, I think, maybe, or 12, but it was pretty awesome to have all these people that are all so talented working at or below scale for the project. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Shout out to the SAG micro budget contract.
Yes, exactly. It would not have happened for anything else. Yeah. I mean, we made this for, what's our total, like, should we not say it? We're not supposed to say what our budget is. Either way,
personal choice.
I think all said after, like, including festival submissions, we were right about 10,000.
And I bet festival submissions was half the budget.
Third. I think about 1,000.
Okay,
because Claire had 2 previous very successful festival runs to pull from. So we got a lot of waivers, we got a lot of invites.
Yeah. But that's and then one good thing. It's like, yeah, as soon as you become an alumni at a place, then you're kind of in for the next 5 years or so. Yeah. And then we had just a friend who helped us out a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to Paul Sloop, who is the programmer at Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Cordillera. He programmed us for our world premiere at Cleveland, which was wild because that is an Academy Award qualifying festival. And he liked our film so much that he then programmed it at Pittsburgh and Cordillera and gave us waivers for both, and was such a like early and fervent advocate of the film that it really made me feel from the beginning that like, oh, we have something good here. I knew we were going to think it was good, and I knew we were happy with it, but I had no idea. And I don't know if any of us really did, how deeply audiences were going to connect with it.
Yeah. No, it was huge to have an early champion of the film. And I think I'm just so grateful for every film festival programmer, including you, Chef, to include us, because it's like that's essential. It's essential to have someone who sees your work, who gets your work, and who champions your work, and that's so gratifying. And every time we got to be in front of, and like, I love to do Q&As because I love to see the looks on people's faces. Some people are kind of teary. Some people are just really excited to ask questions. And I'm like, something we did is creating this emotion or that look on that person's face. It's just the best thing in the world.
Yeah. There's like two really amazing feelings that come with this process. And the first one is like seeing and listening to like really good actors saying lines you wrote. Yeah. I'm never going to get over that. And then like what Claire just said is sitting at a Q&A and having a theater full of people ask you really thoughtful questions. And a lot of times, audiences would ask me a question that taught me something about the film that I hadn't considered before. So that's that's just such a cool feeling. And now I'm never going to be able to stop doing it.
Sure. I mean, that's exactly why film festivals, it might not be the only reason they exist, but the reason they exist for me is film is meant to be shared. It's our version. It's our era's version of storytelling. I always make the analogy to 5,000 years ago when human beings were sitting around campfires at the end of every day, glad that they're still alive and sharing stories of their day. Like, this is the campfire storytelling of our era.
Right.
And if you make a short and it goes on YouTube and you just see the occasional comments, it's like not the same as sharing it with other humans.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's true.
For sure.
And it's, once you've made it and it's out there, it's not yours anymore. So there is, that's frightening and also super liberating. And you just kind of get to see where it goes and what it means to people. And that has been wild.
I'm going to ask a silly question because
go ahead.
My silly question is based upon the wonderful, ambiguous ending, which is, was there ever an audience debate at the end of a Q&A of
at every single one,
right?
Every single one. People had really strong feelings about it.
Yeah, they did.
Which is, flattering to me as a writer.
Should we say spoiler alert and talk about it, or should we just say
that's up to you? I swear to God, alert. I don't think you can actually spoil the film.
Right.
And you wouldn't even spoil the ending, especially if you choose to say it is ambiguous and both interpretations are valid.
Right.
Then you haven't really spoiled it.
All right. Well, spoiler-ish. At the end, when they don't hold hands, so certain people really felt like it would have been a perfect ending to have them hold hands, and I think that would have it would have taken away so much of the power from the film in terms of like, this shit is not going to be solved overnight. And any depiction of trauma or relationship struggles being solved after one therapy session is like, that's irresponsible. And so just the fact that they're both trying, but that there's still going to be pain or it's not going to be perfect on the road to recovery. Like that is a much more important message, and kind of not knowing if they'll be super successful in getting back to something that is more familiar to what they had. We don't know if they will or they won't, and it would have been the cheesy ending if they had held hands.
Well,
I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, people really wanted it, and but they, I think they got it. I'm glad that landed so hard for people, because the want was so strong that to feel so disappointed when it didn't happen, think about how the characters feel, you know, every single day. And I also think that if we can, as a team, leave you feeling maybe hopeful, that's, I think, more satisfying to an audience and more satisfying to us than it is to just tie it up and have you leave it. So I think it resonates a little bit more if we can give you the hope that they're trying, and we can give you the reality that it sucks, and maybe they'll make it and maybe they won't, but I like to think that they will.
I was going to say, it kind of is a callback to what Claire said earlier about the perpetrators, which is it's more powerful what happened. The storytelling off screen is equally powerful. And I might be in the camp of like, oh, they're about 3 to 6 weeks away from those hands touching. I guess I settled on that personally, because obviously I can't let go. I really can't let go of the idea that they're going to make it, because
I hope so.
I think I'm with you. Yeah. We don't know. So I hope so.
Yeah. We don't know how long it'll take.
I don't know them. So,
and there will be setbacks after the hands. Yeah. See what a quality story that like I can write in my head. I can just tell myself, here's what's going to happen. It's going to get a little better, and then it's going to get worse, and then better and worse. And the arc of time will trend towards love. But I guess that probably just says more about who I am, right? I'm projecting my own romanticism on their future.
Well, that's what we want. You know, that's what I want people to take away from certainly anything that I write, and certainly this script, especially because Claire directed it so beautifully, and it was so subtle and so unflinching in a lot of ways. I want people to be able to bring the best of themselves to it, and the things that they hope, and maybe the things that they're afraid of. And I think that's the point of movies.
If a story isn't truthful, people aren't going to sit around and discuss it. They're just going to, they're going to say, that was really nice, and move on to the next thing to talk about. So yeah, it's really the emotional truth that leads. How cool is it to have a film that creates a debate over such a small detail?
I know. I love it. It's the best.
It's great.
It was cool. There was one festival, I can't remember which one, where this woman stood up, and there were a couple of directors up there talking about films that had just screened. And when she was called on, she literally stood up and pointed at me and said, "Did the writer intend for them to not hold hands? Because I really wanted them to hold hands." And she was really upset. And I said, I didn't know what I was like, well, I'm the writer, so yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, and then I said all the things that we've been saying, is that it just was the only logical, not even logical, the only true way to end the film.
Yeah.
I can't help but bring up an anecdote, because you were the writer, and the wonderful thing you said about when Claire gave you the excellent direction when you and Glenn were sitting on that couch. But that I remember hearing that when they were making Being John Malkovich, Spike Jonze said to John Malkovich at one, I heard a Malkovich interview where he said, you know, in between takes, Spike came over and said, I don't think John Malkovich would react that way.
That's great.
And he was saying it too. But yeah, just like, I love that as the writer, you were so open to direction and stuff, because you.
Well, this is the first film that I've ever made. All of my previous work has been as an actor, and as an actor, you just kind of sit around and wait for your phone to ring, no matter how prepared you are and how much class and work and stuff you're doing in the meantime. You don't actually get to do the creative bits until somebody gives you permission. And so I was really, I was a little afraid of this process, and I was so grateful to have Claire sort of steering the ship. And I wanted to learn everything that I could from her. So all of her notes, I felt like, and she wouldn't give a note if it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, there's not time to give notes unless you have to. Most of the time I'm like, did they get that? Okay, I got that. Okay. All right, let's move on. You know what I mean? Like I don't ever need to do one more just to feel like I have something smart to say. If they both come in and they kill it, then I'm like, great, let's move on. I don't need any kind of to take time brainstorming about some brilliant note to give. Screw that. Yeah.
It's still indie film. I mean, you shot this very quickly, right?
2 days. Two 12-hour days.
Yeah.
And not just one location, or did you cheat and use one location for everything?
Oh no.
We used 3 locations. So we had 2 full company moves both days.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. We wished we had been able to avoid that, but
it did. We ended up on time and on budget, so that's all you can hope for.
Excellent.
One day I'll shoot a short film that does not have a company move each day, but that's not today.
For sure. Well, Alyssa talked about the next project. Are there more future projects either of you want to mention?
I just directed my first short film. My first feature film. I just directed my first feature. It's called Departing Seniors, and it's kind of a dark comedy, thriller, horror type situation. It takes place in a high school. It's about, let's think, what's the best way to say this? It's about as this kid named Javier who is being bullied and has an accident. He starts to have psychic visions after the accident that help to reveal that a string of apparent suicides at the high school are actually murders. And so it's up to him and his friend to save all the quote unquote departing seniors before it's too late. It's a very, classic, but with a kind of more modern, queer spin, horror thriller, dark comedy teen movie. And it was great. We shot it in Chicago for about a month, or not a month, but it felt like a month. It was only 16 days, but obviously I was there for about a month for pre-pro and stuff like that. And it was really great. And so we're in post right now. We are picture locked, and hopefully you'll see us at the festival in the spring or summer, TBD. And then hopefully it'll be released on some streaming service, or I don't know. I would love to have a small theatrical run because it's such a fun genre to see reactions to, but we'll see. Yeah.
And there's nothing, and it's not just because a high schooler. I have a high schooler under my roof, but high school, I love films set against high school. I really do. I just think it's such a special time in life.
Yeah. Really, the emotional stakes never get higher.
Never. No, absolutely not. It is the biggest deal. Everything is the biggest deal in high school. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I won't go on about what it's like to raise one, but yeah, seriously. I was explaining to her, this is the most important thing in the world.
Yes.
I get it.
I know. That's true.
Well, that sounds like an excellent film. Actually, I'm going to jump backwards. Alyssa, were there other shorts and other things you wrote, and then this was just the first you decided to try to push to the next level, or
this was the first
time you
script.
sat down and wrote a screenplay?
Mm-hmm. This is the first one.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I have to move my car for my roommate. Keep talking. I'll be back in literally 3 minutes.
No worries.
Okay.
We'll
I'm
cover
so
for
sorry.
No, you're good.
That's what podcasts are about. It's so chill. And it's good I asked a question just about you. So you just made a bunch of screenwriters unhappy to hear that this was your first script.
Well, it was. I did find that to be a thing because this was also my first real festival run as a filmmaker. So when people would ask, "Where are you playing next? What are you doing?" and I would say, "Well, we world premiered at Cleveland and we're playing at LA Shorts, and we have a total of 20 festivals." There were not very many people. Most people were really excited. I felt a little bit like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde when Warner says, "You got into Harvard," and she goes, "What? Like it's hard?" It was very much that energy. I mean, not intentionally, but I will say that it would not have gone this well had it not been for Claire and for the whole team that worked on this, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I knew that I couldn't direct it. I knew that I needed really a mentor, and that's what Claire was to me in this. And also, she's just a really good artist. But the way that it came together was it's sort of a combination of kismet and collaboration and friends really wanting to make this thing, and also everybody sort of finding something in the script that resonated with them. And I think that was a pretty big stroke of luck. But so who knows? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with this next short that I'm working on. I've been trying to write a feature, and I have this, idea of like a 90s thriller. Every movie Michael Douglas was in with like a scary blonde woman. It's like my favorite genre. So that's the kind of thing I've been trying to write. And I got really stuck because one of the things that I love doing is writing dialogue. And then if I don't know the next plot point, well, then everyone's just going to talk for 15 minutes. And so, I stopped and I said, what's, just as an exercise, what's the opposite of this? And it was like the middle of December. And I said, okay, well, maybe a Christmas movie. Okay. So it's a rom-com. It's a queer Christmas rom-com, and just banged out a draft. And it is, it's called Paper Planes. And it is about an agoraphobe and the Airbnb guest across the hall who have sort of a correspondence that turns into something more at the holidays. And it was a thing where I kind of made a joke and said, all right, I wrote another script. Who wants to make it? And Michael Smith reached out to me and said, well, I would like to read it. And he loved it, which was wild to me because I think he's a brilliant filmmaker. And so he asked if we could co-direct, which was also a huge gesture of faith in me because that's something that I've never done. And, you can really only crowdfund one time. I don't think you can, maybe, other people might be better at this than I am, but I think you can really, depending on your circle, only go to everyone you know and ask for money one time. So this one, Michael went to one of his regular investors and said, here's the script. Will you give us the budget? And the investor liked the script and said yes. So we didn't have to go through the crowdfunding process on this one.
Amazing. And it's just a testament to your integrity that you say you can only crowdfund one time, because, there's a lot of people who have no shame about it. But I respect what you said. Yeah, I
don't know. Maybe give it a couple years, then I might be able to be more comfortable. But having just gone in a pandemic to everyone we knew and said, will you give us money to make this thing? I wasn't going to be comfortable doing it again anytime soon.
Well, and it sounds like you're both on the right track, because I'm just going to throw in the compliment of, I think often the best strategy is to do a very fresh take on a genre people are familiar with, but make it fresh and original. It sounds like both your features are that. Whether it's, a totally different way. And by the way, golf clap for the titles. My memory, but Paper Planes, mm-hmm. and Departing Seniors.
Mm-hmm. To be clear, I did not write this feature film. My friend did. I cannot take credit for the title, but I agree it is absolutely brilliant.
It's a great title, and great titles are so important. It really is. So it literally tells the audience this is a film you can trust, and then it's going to be. It's not going to scare the shit out of you and come out of left field, but you're going to sit down and see something like an original take on something.
Right.
That's the hope.
Awesome. Anything else anyone wants to add in before we do our?
I think we covered it. I think we nailed it.
Covered it.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice.
Well, I'm going to add one thing. I can promise you that Claire would have said if she was here, none of it would have happened if the script wasn't as wonderful as it was. Like it was, it was, if you had given her something that didn't resonate, everything wouldn't have come together at all. It's just like, right. It's the blueprints for the dream home. And if you try to build a dream home without well thought out blueprints that will get you there, you're going to end up with something that crumbles. So
collaboration is just like absolutely everything. And the longer I'm in this field, the more I'm like so indebted to and grateful for all the humans that I work with. Like, I want my new film to succeed so badly, less even for me and more because I'm like, people need to see this actor do their thing. People need to hear like these words. People need to see his cinematography. People need to hear her music. Like, to care so much more about like the whole project, the team, is a really remarkable feeling. I think it's one that's relatively unique to film. It's so collaborative.
And it's so great because so much of this business is super isolating.
Yes. Yeah.
And to be able to have that repeatedly with projects is, I will never take that for granted.
Same.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like a good time to ask you if there's social media or websites that people should check out.
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Clare Cooney Official. That is with no I, ClareCooney official. So follow me there. That's where I'm definitely the most active. And then, if you want to check out more about me, you can go to my website. It's claire-cooney.com.
And those will be clickable links in the show notes for those listening. And Alyssa, you got them?
Yeah, same deal for me. I am on Instagram a lot talking about 90s movies and generally all things my pets. It's Alyssa Thorshammer, just spelled. It's easier than my last name. And AlyssaThordarson.com. It's my professional website.
Excellent. All right. And now I will ramble off everything so we can wrap it up. So you've just listened to the Discover Indie Film podcast, where filmmakers who are currently on the festival circuit get quality time to talk about their work, because even a nice 15-minute Q&A at a theater, is not enough. Not enough for great work. So that's how this podcast got started. I programmed 2 festivals. I was honored to have Alyssa and Claire's film After a Love Story at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. So if you want to learn more about this podcast or the Prime Video TV series that was born from it, because everyone who came on this podcast who made a feature would talk about the streaming service they were on, and everyone who made a short talked about YouTube and Vimeo. And I was like, I just said to 20 people, I'm like, should we put all your shorts together and make it a Prime Video direct series? And everyone said yes. And so now we're on season 7, season 8's coming. So please be kind, people. Like and subscribe to the podcast. If you want to be extra kind, go to Prime Video and type in Discover Indie Film in your search field and watch really absolutely great shorts. You know what? It's heartbreaking. I love shorts equally with features, but sometimes more because you can't find shorts beyond the festival circuit unless you find a thing like Amuletto, which is wonderful. Just enjoy that TV series if you get a chance, people. And if you want to be extra cool, watch it and then give it 5 fucking stars and write a review, because like we said with Amuletto and YouTube, you gotta write review. You gotta, we live in a troll culture, so it's so easy to only comment on Yelp when you're mad about a restaurant. You actually got to take the time to reward the people who do their job well. But I don't know, it feels like our culture is kind of focused on the negative, so focus on the positive, will you? All right. I will. So if you want to learn more about the podcast and TV series, go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's at DIFwins. Sherman Oaks Film Festival is every November. It's ShermanOaksFF.com and at ShermanOaksFF on social media. There is a sister festival every June, and that's Film Invasion Los Angeles, and you can learn about it at filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. And one last thing I'm going to name, and this is actually something that obviously I don't think After a Love Story is a wonderful fit, but because I'm a kook and I just want everyone to watch everything I love, I noticed programming 2 film festivals that there's a lot of films I see that would be great to watch if you're a responsible marijuana user. I don't think people should abuse drugs, but if you live somewhere where it's legal or close to it and you can use marijuana in a way that is not detrimental to your life, started a streaming service called HITV, HITV. And if you go to watchhitv.com, it's a smart TV app, which is the same as a streaming service, where all the content is wonderfully curated to be great to watch when you're stoned. I felt like there was a need. I don't think Netflix is ever going to have a category that says, watch this when you after an edible. So what can I say? I did that. I don't think After a Love Story is a film I would want to watch high, but it is a film I'll always want to watch. I got to tell you, it's so great. By the way, and I'll throw one last compliment at you both, which is whenever I'm about to go disappear for a couple hours and record a podcast, my wife always says, who is it this time? And when I said it's After a Love Story, I didn't even have to tell her the plot. She was like, oh, that one's so good.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
She does watch almost
tell
everything.
her thank you. That's so great.
Alyssa Thordarson and Clare Cooney, thank you both for taking the time for a real long interview. That was really fun.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Such a joy.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.